Hey guys, this is Thomas over here at NurseMoneyTalk.com, and in this video what I want to do is I want to talk about the 5 common mistakes I see new nurses making. A lot of these are fairly avoidable, and some of them, like, it's obvious, it's just not knowing any better. But these are big deals, and they could easily get you fired from your new grad job if not actually reported to the Board of Nursing. So definitely stay tuned for that. Before I get started though, I want to go ahead and invite you, if you're not already subscribed, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button on this channel. I talk about all things related to nursing students, nursing, and overall nurse life. Also, if you are a new nurse that's watching this, I want to encourage you to check out NurseMoneyTalk.com/New Grad Academy. You'll see the link on the screen, and it'll also be in the descriptions below. That's just kind of like a platform where you can get really help in all sorts of things related to documentation, like how to document the right way, how to give report, and just kind of like help in terms of how to, like, overall just kind of transitioning from being a nursing student to being a practicing nurse. So definitely check that out. Like I said, link is in the descriptions below. Let's go ahead and get started with the first mistake that I see new nurses making all the time, which is really just like medication errors. To be fair, medication errors is not something that's exclusively to new nurses. Seasoned nurses, they'll, make those mistakes for one various reasons or another, especially with how hectic, like a 12-hour shift can be. So it's not really, and honestly, like I would venture to say that if you've practiced long enough, you're bound to make some kind or get really close to making a medication error. But the thing with new nurses though is that it seems like it's fairly common and it's fairly prevalent. Some of the issues are just like not focusing on what you're doing and just overall maybe just like being distracted. So if you're pulling meds, so depending on how you get your routine, you kind of get your routine going in terms of getting your morning med pass or afternoon, whatever your med pass organized. It helps if you stay focused. Like one issue I'll see is like, you're trying to, pull meds from the Omnicell, get everything gathered together. And then you're talking to other nurses, maybe you're even on the phone or you're doing whatever. And so that kind of distracts you from kind of getting things organized from the very get-go. The other thing I would encourage is that when it comes to med pass or whatever, just try to stay focused. Try to leave your family stuff at home, because I think it's very easy to, similar to how we say leave work at home, leave your work stuff at work when you transition home. I think it's the same thing with try to leave your home stuff, like your home situation, at home when you come to work, because that can be a big distraction in terms of what you're doing. The other thing that I think will be very crucial to just making sure and decreasing the amount of medication errors that you're having is just making sure that, like, you're scanning medications, as you're giving it to a patient, before you're giving it to a patient, probably, to be more technically correct. And I'll see several different ways nurses will try to kind of cut corners, whether that's they'll scan all the medications from the very get-go and then they'll travel around and give it to patients, and that kind of defeats the purpose of it, because the goal is to catch those errors while you're doing it. And so so that's one thing I would really encourage you, is just, especially when it comes to scanning medications, just try to follow as close to your facility protocol as possible, because those scanners will save your butt more times than you'll really know. So the second issue that I see a lot of new nurses making is just making a lot of frequent charting errors. And so this could be either not documenting something that you should have documented, overly documenting, such as like double charting. And so one way to really handle this is to, ideally, you don't want to wait too long after an event happens, to chart it. Now I do understand that, especially if you're on a busy med-surg floor, even on the ICU, ER, whatever, you're probably not going to have enough time to do it. It would be unrealistic for you to chart all of the stuff that's going on while it's going on. And that's very fair. But what I would encourage you is just make sure that you figured out a system of taking good notes so that whenever you do get a chance to sit down and chart, you'll be able to have all that information there, with the times, and you won't leave something out, or worse yet, you'll have to, sitting around, trying to think about, man, what was that thing that I was going to chart? What was the time that it happened? So just a good notes will save you there. Just remember, like, the key thing when it comes to documentation, and that's like, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. So just keep that in mind. The third issue that new nurses will run into is that when they're calling the doctor, they're not being prepared. I will say this, that I do understand that there are, unfortunately, a lot of physicians out there that show little to no grace to their nursing staff, especially when it's a new nurse and there is a learning curve. You are still learning. Mistakes are going to happen. But at the same time, try to do your part to try to minimize some of the issues you're going to have with physicians. And so one key thing that I'll mention is that when you call the physician, especially if it's at night, just try to make sure that you have everything that you need prepared. Make sure that you've assessed the patient. Make sure that you have whatever relevant information ready, whether that be vital signs, lab, if your hospital has a protocol or whatever with steps that you're supposed to do, make sure that, that you've documented and you can be able to recall what steps you've already tried before calling the physician. And, and just overall, just knowing your physician. And I do understand that that's going to come with time. But, asking your senior nurses on the unit about, how, what's the temperament of this physician, how are they like, or whatever. And they'll be honest with you about it, and they'll tell you what kind of physician, that person is. Because, there are some physicians where they're fairly easygoing and their temperament's very, very kind of chill. And then there are those who, like, they kind of spike up and down. And you'll have some where they're just rude and hateful 24/7. That is just their baseline. And so, but on top of that, you need to understand that when you're calling for orders, there are some physicians who, like, you call, you tell them, what it is that you need, and they'll tell you what you need to do. There are some where you'll call, you'll tell them the issue, and they'll ask you, what do you need from them? Like, they just want to get off the phone with you as quickly as possible. So knowing what type of physician, if it's one where, like, this and this is happening, I need X, Y, and Z. Okay, yeah, sure. You got your orders by. And so that comes with just knowing your physician. The fourth thing that I see new nurses making, mistakes that I see them making all the time, is just breaking HIPAA. And these are just very silly mistakes that new nurses are making, like mistakes that shouldn't happen. So for instance, you shouldn't be taking pictures at work. Like, I mean, come on, taking pictures and posting it on social media. I mean, that's just don't do that. I mean, because you don't know what patient might be in that picture. You don't even know your background, what, HIPAA protected information that could be in there. And hospitals aren't going to take too kindly, with breaking of HIPAA, because, that's ultimately, their butts are on the line for that. And so even in situations where, like, you start posting on social media, so-and-so patient was really annoying today, or whatever the case is, where you're using their name, or you're using enough information to where it can be clearly identified who that person is. I mean, you just need to be wary of social media. I'm not saying don't use social media or whatever. I'm not even saying necessarily that you couldn't vent about your job necessarily on social media, but just you have to be smart about, you know, what you're saying, what you're saying on social media. Don't assume that it's private. There is no such thing. You should assume that the information that you're posting on whatever social media platform that you use can easily get back to your employer, because it probably would if it's something that's negative enough. So just be mindful of that. The fifth mistake that I see new nurses making all the time, and that's very easily avoidable, is just drowning because they're not asking for help. So you just need to ask for help. You know, you're a new nurse. There's nobody expects you to have everything put together. Nobody. I mean, you just barely got out of nursing school. You're going to have questions. Questions are going to be expected from you. And if you're struggling, like, especially if you have like a preceptor, or if your facility has like some kind of mentorship program or nurse residency or whatever, and if you run into situations, especially some of the things that so I'm thinking like maybe the stress, like you just feel like there's a lot going on and you just don't have enough time to do everything, probably because of poor time management or whatever. I think asking for help from a senior nurse, asking for help from your manager, your preceptor, or whoever is coordinating your nurse residency, if you're in that, will go a long way to just helping you and your overall just kind of like mental health. Actually, while I'm at it, I'm gonna throw in a bonus mistake that I see that a lot of new nurses are making, and that's not looking after your self-care, like not taking care of yourself. So, you start this job, you could be, maybe you're working a crap ton of hours and, you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're on nights, and nights is you're just not handling nights well. Maybe you're just constantly stressed. Maybe you need to go see a counselor or something. But the point is that like taking care of yourself is very important. It's very hard to constantly try to reach out there and take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself. Like, I think about that situation where, like, if you're in an airline and you have like a child, and they say like, oh, if the oxygen mask or whatever drops, you need to put yours on first before then you try to put on the mask, the oxygen mask to the child. And I think that analogy, I'm not even sure if it's a good analogy, but whatever. I already said it, so we'll just kind of roll with it. I think that analogy works really well in this situation where, if you're not actively taking care of yourself, you run the risk of not being able to take care of your patients. And so that's just something that I would just really, really encourage you to take care, to just be mindful of it. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. If there's one on there that you think that I missed, don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you find this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you very soon in that next video.